everybody, good afternoon, and welcome back to another episode of Annie's Afternoon Podcast. I'm your host, Annie, and welcome back to another episode of my podcast. For today's podcast, I thought it'd be really fun to show you guys some tips and tricks for starting a podcast. So without further ado, let's get started. Before we get started with today's podcast episode, make sure you guys give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe down below. Make sure you guys turn on your post notifications so you won't miss when a new podcast comes out. So without further ado, let's get started. I am going to be sharing 5 tips for you guys. So the first tip is to have a good background. And I know some of you guys, for most of you, people who do a podcast normally post it on the podcast app. And for some people who do podcasts on YouTube, have a background. And it is very important to have a little backdrop while you're doing a podcast so that there's nothing in the background behind you that is distracting the viewer from watching. So behind me, I have a little plant and I have a little quote up here just right behind me. And it is very soothing and it is something that my viewers will not get distracted looking at. The second tip is have a plan of what you're going to talk about or what topic you want to talk about for your podcast. So, for example, if you were going to talk about tips and tricks on fashion or school, something like that, you want to make sure you write it down somewhere in like a notebook or on a notepad so that you know for your next podcast, you know exactly what you're going to do. The third tip I have for you guys is don't be professional. You do not have to be professional with doing a podcast. Obviously, I am just filming a podcast with my phone and posting it onto YouTube, and it's really easy for me to do because it's not something really fancy or something that's super expensive like a camera or something like that. You can use your phone, you can use an iPad, a computer, whatever you have that you can record on, use that. It does not have to be something really expensive. Fourth tip I have for you guys is be yourself. You do not have to write a whole script of lines of what you have to say, and you do not have to be perfect. Obviously, I am just in my room filming this podcast on my desk, and I am being myself. I am showing and expressing my feelings to you guys and talking about different topics, which will soon be later in the episodes, and I am just being myself. I'm not just trying to be fake on here. I am 100% showing you guys my real side. And tip number 5, have a quiet place to do your podcast. You do not want a place where it is loud, crazy, chaotic, all that. You want a quiet, nice, quiet space for you to film your podcast where there is no distractions and no disruption. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Annie's Afternoon Podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please make sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe down below. Make sure to turn on post notifications so you won't miss when a new podcast comes out. And I post every Saturdays in the afternoons at 1 p.m. and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!